Hi everyone, Josh, Agent Mad Hat here. After a huge gap of not making any videos, here we're here to talk about an album and to review it. A release from 2015 earlier this year, band by the name of Enslaved, and their album End Times. As a little bit of a backstory, Enslaved is one of those handful of bands that had their beginning in the Norwegian black metal scene of the early 90s. But as Enslaved evolved as a band, their style has evolved into more of a progressive black metal with elements of Viking, elements of folk metal in it as well. Their arrangements are particularly more complex than a lot of black metal from that time period. Really, my interest in them has peaked over the last, 3 or 4 years, or really the last 5 years, ever since their album Axiom Ethica Odinai. And ever since that release, they've had Retir, which I'm probably mispronouncing, and then this one, along with several EPs. I haven't listened to the EPs, but all 3 of these albums have been excellent, amazing releases, and this one's no different. This album showcases a lot of things that are really amazing. It's a very consistent record, start to finish. You don't really have a lot of downtime. There's no time where you are bored. You might be absorbed and a little bit hypnotized throughout some of it, but it's a very engaging album. It's a very captivating album. Some of the things I like most about it, it's got a lot of different transitions, being, with the sound of progressive, and every time they transition from a cleaner section into a more black metal, a more harsher section, and back again, the transition is very fluid. It's very smooth. It's not like what you get in a lot of avant-garde bands where it feels kind of disjointed and chaotic. It does have, a bit of a chaotic feeling to it at times, but it's very well executed, very well done when they add in all these different elements. This is an album that is not primarily based on, just being heavy as shit. It's not a huge headbanger of a beast of an album. It's more of just gorgeous, masterful compositions. And when I say that, it does have a lot of black metal influence in it, but the part that, it's supplemented by a lot of clean melodic sections. It's supplemented by, both harsh vocals and clean vocals, both, tremoloed, distorted riffs, and cleaner acoustic melodies sprinkled over with a little bit of string and synth. The guitar work on this album is amazing. When you got the interplay between the guitar and the vocals, between, there'll be some really gorgeous reverbed lead parts, or maybe a clean section, when these riffs just hit you out of nowhere. It's just minute after minute of the guitar players that they really know their way around the guitar. They know their way around their instruments. They're so good at writing music, at composing music, as well as with the vocal harmonies. On the one hand, you've got your traditional black metal shrieked and growled vocals, which are really good, but then you've also got these clean vocals, of which there are a lot of harmony between the two or three different vocalists, and the way they do their vocal harmonies, it just blends so well together. Their voices just blend so well together. It's very awesome to hear. And you know, with their lyrics are also extremely well written. They've got very good lyrics. A lot of it focuses on a little bit of philosophical issues, mixed with a little bit of influence from, you know, Viking mythology themes. You know, some of my favorite examples: Winding Down the Icy Path, you know, or Sailing Across the Ocean of Times. You know, that's just little small snippets of lyrics, but it's the way they sing it, the way they present it. And with the vocals, again, there's a lot of interplay. I forget exactly which song it's on. I think it's Not There Bleeding, where there's this interplay between the clean vocals and the harsh vocals. You'll have a clean sung section that's sung, and then a section that's screamed, and they just play off of each other throughout the whole section. And it's quite well executed. It gives it this atmosphere that's hard to describe. There's a lot of variation on this album. They go into a lot of different random key signatures, a lot of switch ups in their time signatures. Sometimes it almost feels a little bit jazz influenced, just a little bit of a tinge there. Maybe the thing I like most about this album is its consistency. You know, you can't really point out any definitive standout highlight tracks, not because it's bland, but because the album is so consistent that if I was to mention the tracks that I like best, I would just be naming them all right down the list. This album maintains its consistency. It starts strong, and it keeps that consistency. It keeps afloat throughout the whole listening experience. It doesn't drop out down into a boring place. That's a problem that I have with a lot of different albums, is they'll start off really strongly and really hit you with something that you love, but then as the album goes on, it just kind of will taper off. Not this album. This album, all the way, start to finish, is engaging, very well written. The production, it still has that sound of trebly black metal, but it's very, at the same time, clear, and you can hear all the instrumentation pretty well in the mix of it. The bass actually does some of its stuff standalone, especially in the clean sections. I like the bass tone and the fact that it's a black metal record and the bass is audible. One of my favorite moments on this album, a very standout moment, is the guitar solo on Not There Bleeding. That's one of my favorite just standout parts of this album. You know, the guitar leads that they have, every time they do a lead part or a solo part with the guitars, it's flawless. You know, it's not just a repetitious, as fast as you can shred. It's very emotive, very full of feeling, full of soul, and at the same time very complex. You know, after all this instrumentation, you know, all this atmosphere, and all the guitars and the bass and the drums are very well executed. It's not just blast beat after blast beat. There's a lot of different interesting little nuances with the drums, and over all that you got this sprinkling of synth and mellotron and keyboards, these little flourishes that just that, like, unlike a lot of other bands that use keyboards, that the keyboards are just really overbearing. This is something to where I had to really listen to pick it out, but once you pick up on those keyboards, it really adds to the atmosphere of it. It's just kind of sprinkled lightly in the background and really highlighted in some of the more cleaner melodic sections, which, makes for a good atmosphere. All in all, I'd probably rate this album a strong 9 out of 10, maybe even leaning towards perfect score. Close to a perfect album. I would not be surprised if this album makes makes number one on my album of the year list. Enslaved, End Times. If you are remotely a fan of this band, I would definitely check this out. If you're not a fan of this band, I would recommend checking out this album along with Axiom, Ethica, Odinai, maybe Below the Lights too, and Viking Lervelity, their first album. Check out anything by this band. They're known as having one of the most consistent discographies. Enslaved, End Times, 9 to 9.5 out of 10. Listen to it. You're gonna love it. Peace.